Good morning, fellow Potter quarantiners. We are going on week 4 of self-isolating here in Ka'ava in Hawaii. I am going to try for probably the 4th time to make this video on how to make painting palettes. I think that it's been really awesome, the community of potters out there giving how-to videos, but for some reason, the influx of social media posting has made it really difficult to post a video. So I'm crossing my fingers that this one works. This is a really easy slab building Kurinuki method project for you. You can even involve your kids. It's just carving. I'm just gonna go through the tools we need and show you some examples before we get started. So, all you're gonna need today is your clay. You're gonna need a ruler. You're gonna need a fettling knife or some sort of cutting tool. You can have a needle tool, or I'm using my Diamond Core Tools Sgraffito tool to trace. You're gonna need a rolling pin, and you're gonna need a rib to compress and smooth out your clay. And then you're gonna need some carving tools. So depending on the shapes that you're gonna make, you're gonna need carving tool with a round edge and one with a more rectangular edge. I use the small tool and the big tool. And you're also gonna need 2 wear boards and a plastic bag to cover your painting palette while it dries. Okay, so some examples. All right, so these are really fun, and the reason why I did this was to get my kids to have some painting palettes instead of just putting paint globs like all over my kitchen table. So I'll show you the first one. This is kind of like a wagon wheel orange slice design, where you would have a little bit of water in the middle and then lots of different palettes for mixing or different colors, whatever you want. Here's a more traditional one with a big water tray, 3 smaller circles, and 4 larger ones, and then a mixing palette. And this one's kind of cool because I made paintbrush stands, so you can have your paintbrushes fit in there. And while I was at it, I decided to make one for myself. It's quite large, but it'll be perfect for underglazes. I can put some water in here, different mixing colors. I use underglazes in my work all the time, so I really like it. And then I've decided to put feet on all my trays, just like these cute little feet. And the reason I did that was because when my kids are painting and they have water, the water gets under the tray and it just like suctions onto the table, and it's just a big mess. So feet are optional. So let's get to it. First, we're gonna need our clay, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut a slab straight from the bag. So you're gonna kind of wanna go for probably like, I don't know, 1.5 inch thickness. You can go thicker, of course, if you want to. It depends how deep you want your palettes to be. So I'm just gonna start here. And you don't have to decide on your shape yet. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna flatten the clay a little bit and compress it, and then we'll cut a shape around it. So if you want a circle, you don't need to make a ball at this point. Okay. I think you can hear the angry rooster in the background. One of many. Okay, I also forgot to mention that I'm using a stencil today. You can pre-cut out some cardboard or some cardstock paper if you want exact circles. I like this because it's like a ruler, a stencil. You can even use these smaller circles for paintbrush holders. I stole this from my husband's wood shop workshop, so it's been really great for me though. Okay, so I do not have a slab roller, so I just pound my slabs by hand, and I'm just going to flip my clay, make sure it's even. The slab doesn't need to be too large. Think about how much space you really want for your palette. You can always trim, but you also don't want to go too thin at this point. My actual painting palettes only measure about 1.5 centimeters tall. So today I'm probably just going to do a square or rectangular shape. Something perfect for a kiddo to use. And when I get to a point where I feel like my clay is long enough, wide enough, I'm just moving all around here. Then I'm going to take my roller and gently roll out my clay on all sides. Compress it, get it nice and smooth. Try to even it out. Okay, so as you can see, far from perfect. What I'm going to do now is I am going to take my ruler and I'm going to decide if I want a rectangular shape or a square shape. You can also use a plate to trace out your circular palette if that's what you'd like. That's what I did with this little guy here. I think I used the top of like a yogurt cup. Okay, so I am going to do kind of like a rectangle. So I'm just going to use my knife right here. Make sure I get a straightish edge and cut. So like I said, this doesn't have to be a perfect shape. You can really do whatever you like. So you can see kind of how thick I've made my slab. It'll be perfect for shallow painting palette tray. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my first wear board, just some plywood, and I'm gonna put my slab down, and I'm gonna take my rib, and I'm just gonna lightly compress. I use canvas to roll out my clay, and I don't really love the look of the canvas imprints. So I always use a rib to get rid of those marks. And then I'm gonna flip it over. And I'm gonna do the same thing. Okay, so at this point, your slab is super soft. So we're not gonna really do too much carving today, but I will show you. I will show you the beginning stages. Okay, so I'm gonna take my scrap clay. Put it back in the bag. Okay, so now I've noticed this isn't quite as straight as I want, so I'm just gonna get rid of that piece. Okay. All right, so what we're gonna do now is design our palette. So what you're really gonna want is make sure you have a water tray, and then you're gonna decide what kind of design you want, basically. So I feel like this circular one is pretty good for kids because they can separate things, they can see what it's like to mix. If it's for you, you may want larger, more variety of shapes. I kind of like this half oval shape here. But the main thing to remember is whatever design you choose, you have to leave enough room in between your palettes, okay? So these measure about 1 centimeter, half to 1 centimeter between each palette. If you don't do that, you'll just end up cutting into everything. Okay, so I think I'm gonna do my water tray first, and with this cool tool, I can kind of make my mark with the ruler for the water tray. So I'm gonna start about 1 centimeter in on both sides. So that's my first mark right there. And then I am going to make a 3 centimeter long water tray. And it's really up to you. For me, I feel like that's a pretty good size. Okay, cool. So, first part done. Okay, now I think what I'm gonna do is something kind of like this. And I just, sketched a couple before I decided. But I have these very large circles. So I'm probably gonna do 2 sets of 3. One of the large ones. And like I said, I'm going to make sure that there is enough space between everything before I mark them. So you are pressing really lightly with your tool right now. So that way, if you don't like a design, you just take your finger and erase it. Super easy. Okay, now I'm going for the second row. Okay, I'll show you what that looks like right there. Very cool. So you're gonna wait till the clay is leather hard to do your paintbrush marks or to scoop them out. But you can make your paintbrush holders, stencil those out if you want at this point. So I'll probably do, and this is totally optional, you may not want them, but I think it's kind of fun. So I'm just gonna do 2. One. Just like that. On the side. And then maybe over here I can do a little ovular shape for mixing. Maybe like a half moon. And I'm just gonna kind of freehand that. There you go. Cool. All right. So, sorry, I'm getting like all these alerts on my phone. I need to. Coronavirus kills more people. It's just like, there's just so much anxiety about it. I don't know why I don't just shut the alerts off. I usually just listen to the news in the morning and then at night and try and spend my day news free, but it's really difficult. Anyway, okay. So at this point, the clay is still super soft, but we can start our initial carving. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna very gently and lightly start carving out of the single block of clay, which is the Kuranuki method. So you do not want to go too deep at all, not whatsoever. It is much easier to carve soft clay, but you also risk damaging your design because the clay is so soft. And you could also risk going right through the clay. So using your largest tool just to scoop out kind of as much as you can. At this point, you can start carving out the shapes. I'm going to show you just about how deep I'm going in this initial stage. Okay, so as you can see, that's how deep I'm going. We are gonna go deeper tomorrow, but this is just kind of the initial carving. So I use the rectangular side of my carving tool to do the rectangular shape. And when I do my circles, I'm gonna use the circular side. It's a super meditative process. And you're not looking for perfection here. You're going to be able to flatten it out once your clay is leather hard. You might need to switch to your smaller tool for the circular ones. As you can see, not perfect, no worries. See while I do this. And then, once you kind of get the hang of it, it doesn't really take too long to do the soft clay. Once we get leather hard, that's when you're going to want to pay more attention to how even your carving marks are. So you can see, these are my first holes. I'm not going to do the rest on the video because I think you kind of get the drift. It's also too wet right now to put on the feet. So what you're gonna do at this point, you're gonna take your other board, you're gonna sit it on top, you're going to cover it with a plastic bag, and you're gonna leave it for tomorrow where you can finish it. That should suffice. Any clay scraps you have at this point, since they're soft enough, you can keep the clay. And I'm gonna show you what this leather hard. Well, this is almost bone dry because I did work on it before. This is what your tray will look like. So of course I've worked on this, and what I've done is I've just gone in with my tool and kept carving. You can see how deep they are. They're still not too deep. You don't want to go through the bottom. And once you get to the leather hard stage, you finish carving the middle. You can flip it over. You can do your signature on the back, and that's where you're gonna add the feet. And for me, my feet are just little balls rolled like this. And I'm going to score the bottom, score where I want the foot to be, and then I'm gonna add a little bit of slip, which is just some watered down clay for me. I don't even add vinegar. Some people just use water, and that's fine too. And I'm gonna stick it on. And once I have